to a powerful film. It's called Blindsided, which recently had its Boston debut at the National Association of Social Workers film series. It follows the story of a woman named Patricia, who was diagnosed with Usher syndrome as a child, a rare condition that leads to both blindness and deafness. Despite her vision and hearing worsening throughout her life, Patricia found solace, joy in music and painting.
If I can finish this painting, I like to think that I can continue painting. It's gonna take a lot of time. I have to learn to be patient. I'm impatient. I'm positive though, I'm nothing positive. I have to be positive about everything, no matter what the circumstances.
Despite Patricia's remarkably positive approach to life, her story took a dark turn. She fell in love with a woman named Karen, and the two moved in together. Karen began abusing Patricia, both verbally and physically.
I'm not going to chase her down the street.
What are you so hostile about?
Why don't you put it on her and help me?
What?
Why don't you put it on her and help me?
I can't bend down.
Yeah.
I'm trying to recover from my heart
I'm
attack.
helpless.
I really do appreciate it. I really do, Kim. Karen, don't do that.
I don't want to be on film. Stop it.
Two lived together for 17 years before Patricia finally moved out. Having fallen in love with another woman named Bella, they married, but shortly after the honeymoon, Bella became abusive too. 5 years later, Patricia left Bella on grounds of spousal abuse. Bella eventually pled guilty to felony assault on a disabled person and was sentenced to 2 years probation. Joining me now are Elisa Olivieri. She's the filmmaker behind this great film, Blindsided. Nice to see you, Elisa. You used to work here at GBH. Beth Leventhal, the executive director of the network La Red, which is a survivor-led organization aimed at ending partner abuse. She, too, was at this past weekend screening. It's very nice to meet you, Beth, too. So I described the story as best I could. Personally, you can't take your eyes off this woman for 59 minutes. She is just unbelievable. What's the message? What's the takeaway for the viewer?
Well, I think one of the takeaways is that her resiliency and her sense of spirit and her sense of self and her sense of wanting more for herself and packing her bags and leaving and finally making the courageous decision to do so. It's not an easy decision. So I think she can be very inspirational for people who are in a not good situation.
And seriously disabled. I mean, has virtually no vision. She totally lost her
She
hearing,
has
and then
no
she got
vision.
one of those implants, and then she was able to hear a little better. How'd you get? You had intimate access. As I'm watching this, I'm saying, as I'm looking at Patricia, I'm saying to myself, and I hadn't met you yet, how did the filmmaker? How did they say yes to allowing you to be part of this thing? It's surreal.
It is surreal. When I started filming her, I didn't know about any of the domestic abuse. So my intent was to film someone.
A disabled person who's got, that's what I assumed.
She wanted to film. She had a camera, she was trying to make a film, she had a keyboard, she was trying to make a record, she was trying to paint. And I saw the painting and I thought, well, with Usher syndrome, you don't know when your eyes are gonna go, so how's she gonna do this? And then it just turned into something.
And they, in most cases, until the end, they didn't say shut the cameras off. It just, you kept filming and filming and
I kept filming, yeah.
Yeah, I learned a lot in the last 24 hours since I saw this thing, Beth. 30 domestic violence shelters in Massachusetts, I think I'm right, and only 2, including yours, is one of them, that's dedicated to survivors or LGBTQ. Is that right?
We are actually now the only one. Because
the only one?
Yeah, the other one closed in December.
And are people as ignorant as I am about this? I'm being candid. I mean, I assume the overwhelming percentage of domestic violence, domestic abuse were in heterosexual relationships. That's not the case at all. It's really a serious situation in same-sex relationships too, no?
Yeah, it's only higher numbers in heterosexual relationships because there are more heterosexual people. The prevalence rate is about the same. It's 25 to 33% of all relationships.
Is it more, I know this is speculative, is it more likely that friends and family of Patricia would have been tuned into what she had gone through if she had been in a heterosexual relationship, meaning where we're more attuned to the notion that signs, and we think this is possible, but most of us say, a woman with a woman, a man with a man, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, it's hard for people to recognize partner abuse regardless. But yes, it is much more difficult, I think, within same-sex relationships or within LGBTQ communities because we don't think of it as something that happens to us.
You know, speaking of happening to us, just look at the CDC numbers, which a couple of them are pretty amazing. First, we'll put up the percentage of people who've experienced sexual abuse, domestic violence. Straight women, 43%, straight men, 21%. That's not so shocking. Wait till you see this for gay and lesbians. Roughly the same number for lesbians, 46 to 43. Gay men, 2 to 1 ratio. What's the message in that, Beth? What's the takeaway from that number?
I think that people are targeted because of their sexual orientation, and an easy place to get somebody who is vulnerable is around sexuality, and particularly when what makes us seem different from other people is about our sexuality. It's the place that perpetrators go to.
How did, you know, I don't like telling people where I had lunch yesterday, much less letting them in like Patricia let you in. How did she, when she saw this and heard this film, what was her reaction to this?
To the whole film?
To the whole thing.
She liked it. And I think one of the things that she liked most was that Karen spoke to it. And I think that sort of gave her a sense of peace.
You mean the Karen acknowledged what, well, I have to say, as an outsider who knows none of these players, Karen came across to me as sadistic a human being as one possibly can be. Maybe this is unfair, or the smile on your face. A sadistic who I almost felt when she's looking at the camera, sort of acknowledging her sins, was acting as if, well, this will cause the sins to go away. I mean, she abused this woman in serious ways for almost 2 decades, both a disabled person and a person who loved her. It's just, it's abhorrent.
It wasn't quite 2 decades. So when the first 10 years of their relationship, they were
so 7
in a
years,
relationship.
whatever it is, yeah.
And then the 7 years they were just roommates. They stayed together for financial
What was your
reasons.
quick takeaway from this film?
I think one of the best things that the film shows is that domestic violence does not happen in a vacuum, that it is one issue that people are facing among many. And so when people often say, you know, well, why don't they just leave? I think this film answers that question really beautifully.
I'm so glad you said that. That's exactly right, and that's what I took away. The film is spectacular, by the way. Congratulations to both of you. It's so good to meet you, and good to meet you
Nice
as well.
to meet you. Thank you for
Thanks so
having us.
much. You can find more information about Blindsided and the network La Red on our website, greaterboston.org.